Here we go. Yippee. Woo! Okay, we good? Oh my god. Of course that has to be the first thing that's seen. Is every time low enough? Hear me good? I hope everything's okay. Because I don't have anyone to tell me. But it's okay. You know, I'm not petty. I'm not, actually. Why did I say that? It's been 2 months. Forgive me. Hello. Oh god. Nothing has loaded. That's crazy. That's great. You know, a wonderful sign. Ray! Ray! Hi! Oh my god! Hi! I've missed you so much! Hi! How are you? I hope you're doing well. I give you a kiss. I'm sorry if I sound louder, by the way. I do have a new mic since I last streamed, but oh my god. They say slay? V! Hi! I've missed you. How are you? You are slaying. You are the one who's slaying, especially since right now I'm just in the void and nothing is loading. I may need to leave and load back in, but I'm glad to hear you're doing good. I'm doing good too. A little bit nervous for the stream, especially since the internet doesn't seem to be on my side today. Oh my god, it's B. Hi. Hello, beloved. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Oh my god. I'm able to make you VIP. That's great. You're finally VIP'd. I don't know why you weren't. But there you go. Okay, let me like reload because I don't know why nothing is loading. And this is scary. Problem. Oh my god, Nebula's in VIP'd. Holy shit. Wow. Clary, hi! Thank you so much for following. I appreciate it. How are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry I won't be able to be there, but I'll lurk because I must support this stream. Oh, thank you, Neb. It's okay. I appreciate it. Let me see if I can VIP. Fuck! Unable to VIP. I have the max VIPs. This is fucked up. But I tried. Right, reloading textures? How do I do that? I forget. Help. I'm widowy hitting the quiddy. You hit F3 plus A? Okay, isn't that like not allowed? Oh! Okay, that didn't work. Best of luck, V. I believe in you. Why is nothing here? Help me. Ah! The game crashed. It took me long enough. It's okay. You know, It wouldn't be a Strobe stream without Scuff, or really just a Twitch stream, or just a stream. You know, you can never avoid it. VACA time? Really? I mean, I thought it was just a little silly little crash. It's the first time I've ever loaded up Quilt. Okay, there I go. Finally connected. It took me like 70 years. Hey!
What? Why is it dying?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Have you tried removing textures?
Removing textures? What do you
Or
mean?
just turning them off anyway, sir? Your texture packs? Minecraft head and hands.
Oh, that's not supposed to be seen.
No. Try moving.
Actually, I mean, what? I didn't see anything. Nothing was there.
You're so right. You're so right.
I'm gonna just remove that. I don't know what else. So many incompatible things.
Yeah, just
No, but my things. But I need the camera. Actually, no, I don't.
Try moving some of them. Don't you need to do all of them? Just enough that it. See if it works or not.
Okay.
Some of them say they're Optifine required, which could be it. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't see that. That may be the issue. I'm still in hell.
Go.
There I go. I crashed again.
Can I see the crasher?
Yes.
Head in the hands. Head in the hands.
Nothing ever wants me to stream. I think.
Alright, I might go to the screen. Where? Hello? Alright. Oh, okay. So, I need to send you a new one. One moment.
A new? What does that mean?
Indium's dying. Indium's dying.
No, why is everything dying when I'm trying to play on it? I could
do
just.
you know what sodium version you are using?
No. I'll have to
You
look.
look.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, hope everyone's doing great. Oh my gosh. I need a ping for your stream in my server in a moment.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Alright, where's Sodium? Sodium? Where are you? And I'm so sorry. Okay. It's these
Sodium
versions.
extra sodium fabric. Let's see. So 410.
Oh, I forgot I was sharing my screen, so you could have just seen them anyway.
I can. Haha.
I was about to send them
What's
to you.
your Indian version?
Yeah.
That's fair. I'm counting there. Okay.
There.
Right version. Try remove Reese's sodium options. Or no, just remove indium. Heat it.
Bro, this?
It's fine. We'll fix it later. That should make it work
Okay.
for now.
Okay.
You better hope Conch doesn't show up though. That's all. Like.
What do you mean?
Otherwise, you won't be able to tell anything special about.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Listen,
It's fine.
even out of character, I'm a bit out of loop of things.
Conch's special armor.
Special.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to stretch.
You're
That wasn't even a point redeem stretch. I just.
I'm so. You know what? No, one moment.
No, I just did.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, thank you for the posture check. You check your posture too. Do it.
Yeah.
Check it and fix
That's
it.
fine.
Fix your gamer posture XP.
It's
Have
fine.
I even? Did I load Minecraft? I forget.
I have no idea. I think you might have.
Oh. I don't see school. Shut the fuck up. I'm not in school. What? Who said that?
No idea.
I am insane. I am losing my baubles.
Okay.
Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Clary.
Hi, Clay. Alright, you should be able to join now.
Okay.
It should work, in theory. Hopefully. Hopefully, can you see?
Oh,
What?
resource reload failed.
Huh? Try again.
Hold
If
on,
at
one
first you
moment.
don't okay.
I need to. Fuck. I'm not in mod mode.
Oh, I can't do anything either. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Fuck. How do I
I
get?
hate those. I hate those.
Please.
Isn't
Let me
here we go.
kill you.
With fire, haha.
I don't. Huh? Why do I not have? I don't understand. I don't have mod stuff. I
Huh?
can't do anything. Ah!
It's good.
It's a good sign as any to see yourself out. I'm trying to.
You can. I think you can also do it through OBS, but.
OBS.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
There's someone screaming outside my house. It's fine.
It's me.
Oh,
I am outside your home.
dang. Did you
Sorry,
get
you
the
want
ball?
me to leave? No!
Oh no! I'm sitting here like staring, like, when will it go? When will it go? Oh my God. You got this. No, you got this. You can do it. I think you can also ban through OBS if you want to try it there.
It won't let me.
Huh? Like, not even just clicking on the name and ban?
I don't have it open through OBS.
Oh.
There we go.
We got it. Let's go.
It's fine.
It's fine. Everything is fine.
I had to like manually type it out, and that was Yeah. Anyways.
Alright, let's see. Take 2. Showtime loading.
Take 2. Second chimes the charm. Yeah. No!
I have one other mod you can remove that was causing me problems too.
Okay, what?
Pop out. It should be Reese's options. That one there, yeah.
Okay.
Alright, then you have to reload because it's Minecraft.
G. All right. GG. Damn. Strobe, Minecraft really loves you, huh? Yeah, you know? It loves me so much. It's such a big fan of me.
It really is. You know, it should give you money. Like everyone here should too.
No.
Yep.
No.
Once we post technical difficulties, I'm going to promote you, Smile. Have you posted on twitter.com?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh no.
I need to find it. I need to find it. I need to find it. I need to there it is.
Jesus, how has this already been like 17 minutes?
It's
actually
fine. Alright? Everything.
Everything is okay.
Everything is fine. Perfectly fine. Yep. It's yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Oh, it's fine. Alright, it's perfectly. Everything is perfectly fine.
Oh, it's not even. Shut up.
Why did you might want to move that one too if it doesn't work?
Oh, those are my Reese's options.
Yeah, I might remove the extra ones that it just said. Also might break your game. We'll see.
We'll see. We ball. Sorry.
That's fine. Look in the mods.
Damn it, why do I keep closing it?
You gotta commit several mods.
Mods.
Let's see. It's like extra sodium options or something. That one there. That's it. Yeah, let me reload Minecraft. Yet again. One day I'm gonna kill Minecraft and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Don't do that. We need that for lore.
It'd be lovely.
I mean,
thanks, Clary. Let's see.
Punching the wall. Why does nothing want me to stream? Figured out now? Oh?
Oh, there we go. Let's see if it loads first. I'm gonna commit so many crimes. I'm gonna commit so many crimes. So many. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do.
Me too. Damn.
I have another option that might be able to fix it if it doesn't work. Because of what Clary sent me.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, I'm gonna be so... Oh. Oh. I'm gonna send you what Clary said.
Damn. This is like...
Hey, Strobe.
I've given such a downgrade to lore right after the last one was...
There you go. This happens alright. It's technical difficulties. It always happens. It's fine.
Okay, I need to cover the screen for this.
Yeah.
I do not want to add leaking the Showtime SMP IP.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Claire, if you fixed it, Claire, you're a genius.
Oh!
You're a
Oh!
genius. Alright, so remember to add your resource packs back too. Thank you, Clary.
Yes, Clary, you're an absolute a genius. A god, if you will.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm gonna go. Have fun.
Okay, thanks. We'll do.
Just add everything.
Oh, they all just
back.
disappeared.
Just add them all back. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Ah. I miss XP. Jesus Christ, why is that the first thing that has to play right after XP leaves? What the fuck? Wait. No, you did not. Don't worry. You sounded fine. I might just need a little just okay. Just need all of them back. Wait, did they all say optifine? Oh, well, better for better result. Why did I say it like that? I'm literally losing my mind. Don't worry about that. And then I guess the flowery one doesn't really make sense anymore because it's all cutesy and I'm not really as cutesy anymore. So I'll keep it basic. Okay. Thank you. We don't need that. Thank you, Clary. Thank you, XP. Both very, very much for the help. It is very appreciated. Now, alright, we in this bitch. I don't have any fucking... It's vanilla, it's basic, it's default, but it's fine. I'm not deaf anymore. We'll figure it out some other time. For now... I have spent some time away from Spawn and just everything over there in general because I felt it would be best for me to stay away because of all the things I've been feeling. Because as time went on, I've only just felt even more angry. And that's just not good for anybody. So, damn, bro's dying down there. L. So I thought it would do good for me to just step back and be away. But I've heard a little something go down that I don't know what. All I heard was sounds of explosions, so I'm a little bit concerned, you know. So it'd be good for me to get a catch up on everything that has gone down. So that is what we're going to be doing. So I'll be like in character, but I'll be able to talk to you gamers at Do I have the stream thing? Okay, I do. Oh! It's no official Minecraft! Ah! Thank you very much for following. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. Hello! How are you doing? I hope you are doing well. Okay. I'm gonna head back to spawn now. I'm gonna pretend I canonically don't see chat right now because I'm not trying to, like, start freaking out so soon. Due to lore reasons. Doing good? That's great. I am glad to hear. Just need to fully get back to spawn. Because I'm like just a little ways away. It's okay. I definitely know parkour. Because I think I'm kind of close now at this point. At this point. Maybe. Hopefully. All that troubleshooting certainly delayed me, but it's okay. Wait, I'm not passing it, am I? Where am I? Where are you? I am 1K blocks away. That's wonderful news. I'm so glad to know that. Hold on, let me look. Let me look at the chords before I spawn because I forgot it. There we go. I just came by to lurk a bit since Xpyz tech stream. XP. What the fuck? How dare you? But but thank you, though. I appreciate that. That is very kind of you to do. Okay, yeah, I am definitely like a while away. I've greatly misjudged my distance. I mean, I was definitely canonically close, and I heard stuff that happened. Yes. This guys are trying to lift me to get all the cords away. It's fine. My bad. I get that they're most likely a bother, and I apologize. I do need them to get back to spawn, though. Because I am too far away. Farther than I expected. So my bad. I should have done that talking while I was walking. But it's fine. I've long delayed. I've delayed long enough. God damn it, why is my father calling me? Hold on, chat! Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways. Lord. God. I don't know, I'm just bored. I always like to do things when I watch a stream. Oh. I mean, that's totally fair. I get that. You are free to. What the fuck? Yeah, you're free to do whatever you like. Keeps me busy while enjoying myself. I got you. I've kind of been the same way. Like, when I'm not hyper fixated on a streamer, I just kind of like have their stream up on in the background. Because it's hard for me to like fully pay attention unless there's like some big stuff going down. So I totally get it. I don't know what to do. Ah. Shit. Well. I don't really know any of the stuff that you like to do. But just kind of like anything that you like to do that you got on hand. Ooh. TikTok concentration on God. That may be a good sign. Wait. Fuck. Wait. Okay. I don't really know what to do. If you draw it all, you can totally do some art. Maybe to make texture packs. Oh! Well, you are completely free to do that. Oh, there it is already. I make enemy cams both from Minecraft. Ooh. Okay, frick. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's press F3. That's very cool. But yeah, you can totally do that. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Oh god. I should have coughed away from the mic. My voice just felt a little bit rough from all of my frustrated screeches. But yeah, I definitely know this place. This is what the fuck? That is that. Who? It's literally that is a sacred place. Who would? That is so rude. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, that makes me angry. Okay. Does Boba know about this? Where the fuck? I can help them out, maybe. With fixing that. Wait, do you want a texture pack? Oh! I mean, I don't want to force anybody to do anything. Like, I mean, I'd totally be down, of course. Like, I'm not gonna be like, nah, you know. But, huh. Feels a little empty in here. Ah! Okay. No, I know I'm being off right now. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a really wonderful, fantastic first sight to see when I come back. So that just means I mean, I wanted to find Boba anyways, but I feel like that's got to be top priority now. To find her. This is what the Jesus. Oh my god. That's okay. A bit concerning. It's free and I like making them, but I'm not the best at making blocks when I do anything in like ah. I don't know what those towers are, but I don't. Okay. I've been back a while. I shouldn't be seeing anything from back then. What the fuck? And shouldn't be here, right? What the fuck? What was the footsteps? Okay, that's spooky. I didn't like that. Yeah. So, oh, the Herobrine is back on. Oh, I thought it would. I back on. Oh, the Herobrine pack is on. Okay, okay, that's what the footsteps were. Okay, okay, that's gonna. That's perfect. I'm gonna. Oh no, I'm gonna literally go insane. But okay, okay, that's. I'm sure I was just seeing things, though I haven't been having flashbacks to back then for a while. So there's no. Okay, it's just clear. There's no way that I'd be seeing N. Unless. Oh, fuck. Oh, no. Is he... Maybe just be a different one from here, or... Was he never dead in the first place? Oh, that can't be it. Clary?
Hello?
Hi!
Hi.
Oh, that's... I'm...
You okay?
Yeah, I'm,
You look like you saw ghosts.
'Tis the season, you know? Sorry. Just coping.
What? Oh my god.
This is the first time I've been back here, because I've been, I decided to take some space, because you also look a bit different. I mean, love the new look, but, yeah, I've, what have I missed?
I think a lot. I mean, I've been a little bit away as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of missed some stuff as well, but it's a long story. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say some stuff like I think I can tell you like the short version of this the thing.
Okay.
So, like recently I heard that Evan got exiled. You know Evan?
Yeah, very barely. I only met him like once. I think it was like during a whole mess that was going on. I forget. But
yeah.
Why did he get exiled? Well, he had like some stuff going on with Skulk, I think, right? Or
Yeah, like, he was asked to not get too close to spawn before. Then, me, Boba, and Effie went to check if he was okay, if he needed help with, materials, stuff, food, and like in a general confusion, he attacked us and I got killed.
oh,
So he got so after that he got exiled.
understandable. I'm
Yeah.
very sorry.
No, it's fine. I kinda got used to it.
Well, I feel like getting killed shouldn't be something to get used to.
I guess so. Oh wait, there's someone behind you. Wait. Yeah, wait, give me a second.
Okay, so that was actually...
Yeah, I think I don't know.
Is the knowledge of the world that came previously a common thing here? Because I knew it was like, because I talked with Contra a little bit after I first came back. And he seemed completely chill about the fact of the existence of like other worlds and that there was one before this one that got destroyed.
This is kind of new.
You didn't? Oh, fuck! I just the way that everyone they were all talking about it seemed like everybody knew. I'm sorry. I was just wondering because with some stuff that happened to me, I kind of ended up being like merged with a version of me that was in that previous world. So I'm and N was also there, so seeing him is a bit jarring.
I don't know if it's in good or bad, but if it's bad, I'm sorry for it. I wasn't supposed to. I didn't mean.
No, it's okay.
I guess let's take a seat. Why are we standing here?
That's a good point. I
Yeah.
I just needed to. I just wanted to.
See, it was Halloween a couple of days ago. Oh my god, I have water. It was Halloween a couple of days ago, so now you see jack-o'-lantern. It's a little bit. I don't know. We have I think there's a boba ramen stand. There's the pond, which has a couple of seats as well. Where do you want to go?
Maybe Boba's ramen stand.
Oh sure. Okay, right.
It's
been a while since I see you, actually.
Yeah. It's been a lot. I'll be honest.
I mean, if you don't want to say it, it's fine. I understand.
It's okay. It's okay. I just
You don't have to feel like it.
I don't mind. I just don't want to like dampen your mood and stuff.
You can say so.
Okay. Well, sorry.
But I think at this point, I think you missed the major elections as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I missed the elections themselves, but like Boba and Goose became mayors, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And I mean,
Yeah,
how's
I mean, Boba is fine,
okay?
but she's fine. She's here, still mentally stable. You know,
That's
classic stuff.
that's wonderful news, honestly.
How do I explain it with Goose though? Should I be direct with you? Should I like just say it?
Yeah, I'd prefer that.
Well, I don't know how then, but one people told me he's dead.
What?
Yeah, but, like I don't know any. I don't know more details, but that's what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know more dark.
it's okay.
I also know there was supposed to be like a major election. No, sorry, major announcement the other day, but I kind of got busy at the end, like some minutes before it started, so I had to leave. So I have no idea what they said or other stuff, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who else was there? If I can try to see if.
Last people I saw were like zombie and Leon. Like, I I didn't I don't know if Leon at the end participated because I was talking with them. They were having some troubles at the end as well. You might ask Zombie though.
Okay. I don't think
he might
of.
tell you a little bit more.
Okay. It'll probably definitely be awkward because I haven't seen Zombie ever since his announcement of coming clean about being here instead of the robot him.
Yeah. In the end, it's the robot.
Yeah, and I did ask him if he was the one from the other world too, and it said no. So I feel like things are probably a little bit, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, for what I know, that's pretty much. I don't know if there is a little bit more or a little bit less. You might ask others. I don't know. I think, yeah. Just others in general.
Okay. I'll try that if I see anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a little bit of people that kind of got away from Spawn. Evan got exiled. Then I don't remember clear, but I heard something about XP as well.
That.
Not sure if it was about exile or about something else. I don't know. I can't recall right now. Yeah, a little bit of stuff happened. Just a little bit.
I see.
Yeah.
Well. Being a part of the stuff that happened with XP, that makes sense, too.
I think so. I don't know what she was doing, but in case I just agreed.
Well.
Yeah, been a while since I saw her as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just say that she's the reason why I'm like this now.
Huh?
Um,
What did she do?
she put me in this machine that's, oh,
Oh,
apparent, yeah, right, what she's standing on, you know, that's so.
well, speaking about the devil, I guess.
And I just, that machine turned me into, like, kind of, yeah, something that she made and everything, and yeah,
Oh my god. God, yeah. Man.
yeah. Damn.
Well, that's really harsh, I think. No, it never happened to me, so... Luckily, it never happened to me. So I don't really know what to say.
No, it's okay. I'm glad it hasn't happened to you. It is not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I just can imagine.
Yeah. Do you... The first thing I saw when I came back here was... Boba's gazebo was, like, blown up. Do you know anything about that?
No, I know nothing. Like, there was supposed to be the place where the meeting was supposed to take place, actually.
Oh.
I'm gonna be completely honest. But I don't know. After I left, I don't know what happened though.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you telling me about the stuff that you do know. Thank you.
No problem. Is she still there? Yes, she's still there. She's sad to hear, I guess. Over that thing.
Yeah. Okay.
You okay?
Not really. I'm still pretty, like, I'm, like, still reeling about seeing Anne. And, not gonna lie, having XP staring us down like that is not comforting.
I mean, think about it, he ran away when he saw you. It was kind of weird. So I don't really know.
That's okay.
Stuff will be good again. Just think about it. Once everything is over, we can sit and chill and watch the stars.
Oh my god!
You know.
Oh, that'd be the day!
You know, sitting there with a bowl of ramen, just watching the stars, laughing about everything. You know, like friends.
Man. I hope that happens.
Yeah, same.
That'd be so nice.
Mhm. He is gone.
Oh. Okay. Well, I think I should probably go. I should probably check out my house, because I don't think either either me or Nebula have been in there for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone has been busy for a while, so.
Yeah. But it was great catching up with you, honestly.
I mean, yeah, it's fine.
I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you again as well.
Well, I'll stick around this time. I won't leave.
So do I, so I'm always at spawn, so if you just want to talk, you can, you know, just send me a message and I'm there.
Okay. I'll
So-
keep that in mind, thank you. Same goes to you.
Alright.
Oh my god, why is my voice so funky? Anyways. Sorry.
The immersion.
Fuck.
No, the immersion.
No. Hmm. Okay. But I guess for now I'll catch you later then.
Alright.
Okay. Thank you again.
Welcome.
It was nice. Bye.
See you around. Bye.
See you. Oh.
Oh. What? Oh, there's a zombie behind.
Ah! Oh no. What the hell? Okay. Ah! Bye.
Bye.
Oh damn, he's fucking dead. Again. But that was Clary was an unexpected face to see, but definitely not an unwelcome one. So that was nice. But I do not feel comfortable with XP at my house. That's what the fuck? Okay. I'm just gonna keep on going. But hi, Enterteagues! Sorry. I didn't mean to dono wall you, but hello. Good to see you. How are you? I hope you are well. That is new. I mean, that's not, but... Huh. I'm good, okay. So thank you. I'm glad to hear! I'm good too, you know? Chilling, doing lore. You know how it is. But okay. Whew, there we go. Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house? Sorry.
Hi, Strobe.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah. Your footsteps really are noticeable from far away, you know?
What's that supposed to mean?
I don't know, take it as you will. It just doesn't matter, you know?
Okay,
One moment, sorry.
it's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Anyhow, welcome back yet again.
Yeah, thanks. It's a bittersweet
Yeah, there was
return.
a few shocks when you came back.
Definitely a couple, yeah. You haven't had anything to do with them, have you?
No, unfortunately, I was busy. Yeah, busy. We'll discuss that afterwards. Yes. Great.
Okay.
That's yeah. Anyhow, what have you been up to, Strobolati?
Just taking some time to myself, away from everything, to try to feel better.
I see. You know that will never happen, right? Oh, it's so entertaining.
Well, I know I'm definitely not all better, but it's been an improvement.
Sorry, this is completely out of the month. That's how Brian just standing there.
What?
Excuse me, this moment.
Hello, Brian.
Wait, how do you not?
What?
Sorry, I'll send you a screenshot after stream. It's really funny.
Chad, I'm scared.
Alright. Okay. So, have you been aware of the recent events? I believe that's what you were doing or something or other. I couldn't hear very well from my spot.
We've only heard a little bit. I mean, as much as Clary knows.
Oh, that's entertaining. Did you hear? Apparently I got exiled. This is still news to me. Hilarious.
I heard they did something with you, and you can't say I'm surprised.
Oh, I'm glad. You know me oh so well. I am that amazing, aren't I?
Sure.
Anyhow, I should probably get to a little bit of business. I can give you a little information, but we remember my few rules, right? Deals and that.
It's
I've
been a
seen
bit.
places
You may need to.
Oh, you need a reminder? I can grace you with one.
Great.
I generally will do anything as long as it's in the form of a deal. Equivalent exchange, yes? You must be aware of the concept.
Yeah. I
Otherwise,
know.
how else would I be here? Oh.
Okay.
You must make a deal with me, or I have to make a deal with you.
Just a moment. Hi, Kalina. Thank you for the raid. I very much appreciate it. How is your stream? Sorry, I'm like in the middle of doing lore right now. But you know, I hope you had a great stream. Hope you're all doing well. For those who do not know me, my name is Strobe. I go by she, they pronouns. I'm also chill with Neos. I wanted to welcome you back to streaming. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. You're too kind. But you know, and hello, Hippie Nader. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh gosh. But I hope you had a good stream. And I very much appreciate it. I mean, work has just had me working like every day, but except for 2 days out of the week. So it's like, unfortunately, I think only like a day, like a week. Unfortunately, given my schedule, because I can't really bring myself to stream early. But do you know where we was talking? I mean, watch intently. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Dissociated.
You're all good. Don't worry.
So you want me to give you a deal?
I mean, that'd always be appreciated, but unfortunately, as amazing as I am, I don't really get that privilege today. So, in other news, I'll offer you this tidbit for free. Have you been aware of Contra recently?
I can't say I have. I have seen neither hide nor hair of him for a while.
Interesting. You'll have an interesting conversation next time the two of you meet.
What?
He's made some choices. Equivalent exchange, yes?
Thank you, I appreciate that. And best of luck with getting things ready.
The poor fool.
I'm a little lost.
It's fine, you'll understand the next time you get the opportunity or the chance to meet him yet again. I get distracted very easily, I apologize.
It's okay, I mean, I do too.
I wasn't apologizing to you, I was more or less saying it out loud. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you think it was to you?
I don't know. It's just...
Great for that, sorry. Anyways, what was I saying? Right. Deals, equivalent exchange. I need your help to kill me. That sound enticing? That sound nice even?
But...
Get your revenge for your little old XP.
Doesn't whatever I do to you hurt her, though?
I mean, consequences are surely a thing. But I wouldn't be lying if I said she was already in immense pain currently. Haunted by memories, things that are real and aren't real. Very entertaining from an outsider's perspective.
Can't say that's entertaining.
Oh, really? Well, that's unsurprising. You like taste.
But the point is, I say that, why do you think I would want to do that?
You wanna get rid of me, don't you? You want me gone, you want XP back. You want her to stop hurting a little bit. Yes.
Yes.
And you maybe even want her to try and fix you, yes. Not that much can be done, of course. I made sure of that, you know. Oh. Has this consumed you enough yet? I'm curious. If that's about him.
It's was not.
I can't, I'm sorry. Anyways. The point still stands. I need you to help me die. In turn, you'll also get a bit of a gift of some sort. As payment for your contribution, one could say. I hear Nebula might be there too.
Did you do anything with her? What?
We have yet to talk, but we will talk. And I'll offer the exact same thing. Chance to kill your best friend's murderer. Oh, this is so fun. You know, destabilizing every once in a while and going other places. You really do miss the nice things in life, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Not that you can even call me alive. I mean, I look like I'm half dead. This is hilarious. Oh, it's so entertaining. Not that I can even die either, so... Oh, it's fine. Everything's fine, you know? Just peachy. Wouldn't you agree with your opportunity?
Part of me.
Oh, I can see it. I can see it in part in you. You're trying. You're trying to make a choice, aren't you?
There's gotta be some kind of catch. Because why do you want me to kill you?
That's personal, if that makes sense. So you don't get to hear about that whether you like it or not.
Of course.
Still stand. I get to die. I get to die. And XP will be one step closer to being back. Oh. Pop. Oh, I forgot how entertaining it was when you jumped back after a hit.
Glad you find it that way.
How do you...
How do you want me to go about it?
I need a few materials, one could say. I need some explosives.
That's...
Don't worry, that's not something I would lie about. It's a deal, after all. I don't get the pleasure to lie about my deal. Do you understand me?
Yes.
Splendid. I need a decent amount of explosive. 42 stacks minimum.
Jesus Jesus Christ! How? First of all, how do you expect me to get that?
Oh, you have your methods, don't you? Maybe you can talk to Contra and see if he can.
Part of me feels like he would not, but
Maybe a mistake, maybe not. We'll see.
it's why? I mean, what do you want that for? Because there's
I need it for a certain. I wonder if she'll get angry at me if I mention this. I need it for a certain procedure, if we can call it that. Because I need to go down with, well, a bag. Yes. So, I need the explosives for said bag. Inadvertently, it'd also probably be helping Boba too. For the short run, maybe the long run. I don't get to see further anymore.
If anyone else is going to get hurt in this, I do not want to help you.
Then let's make it a deal. No one else gets hurt. Yes.
Okay.
Go down. And you get a step closer yet again to getting little XP. I wonder if she's fully recovered now. The pain of having lost you. I wonder.
Let's... Okay.
An offer you can't refuse, no?
I hate that you were right.
I'm always right, Strobe.
Don't know about always.
That's understandable. I mean, you can't see my gloriousness, my brilliance. You haven't had a chance to look in the crystal ball. You understand. But it's fine. I have done the deed already. It's fine. You know?
Just so long as
I made my deal. No one gets hurt.
Okay. Okay.
The same when Concha came to visit me a while ago. Back when I talked to Boba. Oh, did you hear about that, actually? My discussion with Boba.
I think a little bit.
Boba the bear. She was pretty fun to play with.
Okay,
She was older, but it was unfortunate. Bad timing, one could say. I wonder, maybe if this time I die, I'll get my eyes back. That would be nice.
You would
Just
not
like
deserve
you
them.
got your memory. Oh, I deserve a lot more than anyone ever gives credit, you know. I mean, how else would you remember your friends, yes? I can't say any more than that, unfortunately.
There's no use in remembering them if none of them remember me.
A taste of what XP felt then. Do you know she hurt when she learned that you didn't know it? Oh, that was fun to pick up on. I had to learn it after her unfortunate, we could call it passing. Though she's not dead. Just contained. Simple as that.
Okay. Fine. I'll help you. Only because I want you gone.
Who doesn't? Now, you understand your assignment, yeah?
Yes.
I would also talk to Boba. She's had her fair share of encounters. Not
Could
my
you...
encounters, other encounters. But that's a story for another time. Another deal to be made whenever you can.
Just...
I wonder if you still feel pain. Or if you feel too much of it that nothing is felt. The point stays the same, I guess.
Just please... leave her alone entirely.
Oh. Interesting. You still feeling towards her, yes?
It's not important for you to know.
Fair enough. No, that's a gift for another day. XP can do it when she's ready. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I'm not allowed to say. I'm sorry.
What the f... God damn it. God fucking... The last thing I want to do is fucking help it, but... It's for the greater good, I guess. Oh, this is... Oh, God. Didn't even say that I was gonna leave alone Boba entirely. That's great. That's fun. That's so nice. I'm... Fuck. Should have known that I wouldn't expect it. Any answer that isn't vague. God damn it. Ugh. Sorry. Hi, Laura. I mean, yeah, kind of, but it's okay. It's all good. I do very much appreciate seeing you. Thank you for thank you for the prime. I very much appreciate it. It's very kind of you. I should probably meet in game, even though there's no one over here. But freaking. Yes, thank you so much. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, doing lower business. What is the answer you seek? Frick. I mean, I don't really know how to respond because, like, chat is like my little sort of like clouds that kind of surround me. But I don't know if, like, canonically gamers knowing about what happened would be, because I haven't thought of that. Yeah, I don't know. The main thing I wanted to know is if, like, if they'll just leave Boba alone entirely, because I want Boba to be safe and okay. How the fuck am I gonna get that much TNT? Jesus. Don't forget Boba's a person as well. She can do things just as much as you can. Well, yeah, of course. She's more than free to do anything that she wants to do. I just also want to make sure that I don't want people to hurt her. Because I know that XP fucks with her a lot. And that's not cool. I think it was like 42 stacks of TNT or something. I forget exactly the number off the top of my head. So that's great. I don't mean to be overprotective. It's just survived a lot. She can handle it. Kind of just be supportive. That's all you can do. Yeah, that's okay. Scared the shit out of me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Hey!
Yeah.
I love gay people.
Same. You're just plugging out zombie.
Holy shit.
So was the house fine?
Yeah. Yeah. The house is just as how it was left. It was just Xpyz was there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you sure nothing bad happened?
No, it was just they just seemed to be there to talk. And that was about it.
Alright, I guess.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
Okay.
You know. When everything's gonna end, when everything's gonna be chill, we're gonna sit down and chill to see the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's day right now.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah. We'll have that.
You seem like... Sorry?
Oh, I just said we'll have that someday. But what were you saying?
No, you can go first. Nah, you can go first.
Oh, that was it.
Nah. You seem you're thinking a lot about something.
Yeah. Just have some things that I need to do. And it's gonna be a lot, but
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that I'm gonna be doing. That'll work out for everyone in the long run.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
We have different goals in here, so
Well,
so it might not work for everyone. You know.
it'll work for a good amount. And I think for those it doesn't work out for, it doesn't really make a difference. In the sense that it's impartial to them.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And now I've had something presented before me that will help us get towards that future where we all can just be happy together.
Oh. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. It's gonna be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I should get set to work on that now, I guess. So we can get it as soon as possible.
I mean, if you have to do it, do it.
Okay.
Don't make it weird.
Okay. Okay. I will.
Run, another one, and another one.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Run, and
Yeah.
let's go.
Okay. Yo! Let's go!
Whoa. Alright.
Okay. Okay. I'll go do it then.
Yeah.
I'll catch you later.
Let's do it.
Yeah!
Alright.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go! Rah! 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 Yeah. Yeah, this is this is gonna be this is for the good of everyone. It'll be fine. They made a promise. I just need to find Concha, I guess. And I guess I'll probably end the stream here because I don't have an idea of much else I can do because I don't. Yeah. So we'll do. Yeah. Just remember. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, my apologies. You're the hydrated Xpyz. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I've hydrated though. But yeah, my bad. My apologies. My mic is relatively new, so that it probably has like it's a bit louder maybe. But you know, seems like a good place to end it. My bad. Please don't so much fun watching. Oh, frig. I don't know what else I can do for now. So it just be. You did that so out of context. You did, but it's fine. Ah, shit, my dad's calling me again. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. But yeah, I've apologies. I mean, I'll try to do another stream next week, and then probably see if I can get Contra for that, and I'll try to make it seem like it's not a week past like in game, because I feel like that'd be weird. But I'm glad you all enjoyed. Thank you all for being here. DM since I need some stuff to the texture pack. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. But yeah. Yes. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. Oh God. Oh Lord. Yes. Again, thank you all. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day or night or whatever time it is for you right now. It was actually a fairly fun time, even with all of the scuffedness that I had in the beginning. So, without further ado, I shall catch you all later. Goodbye. Goodbye.